Peter Hayes looked out of the small window of his escape pod as it tumbled through the atmosphere of the alien planet. Red warning lights flashed around him. The emergency systems beeped loudly. His heart beat fast in his chest. This was not how the mission was supposed to go. Just hours ago, he had been the science officer on the ESS Discovery, studying strange signals from this unexplored world. Then the attack happened. It came without warning. The ship shook. People screamed. Captain Nelson gave the order to abandon ship. In the chaos, Peter had been pushed into the last escape pod and launched toward the planet's surface. The rest of the crew had escaped in the main shuttle. Peter watched through the window as it rose into space, leaving him behind. He was the sacrifice that allowed them to get away. The aliens had followed his pod instead of the shuttle. He understood the captain's choice, but it still hurt to be. Left behind, the pod crashed hard on the surface. Peter hit his head and everything went black when he woke up. His pod door was open. Strange clicking sounds came from outside. Peter grabbed his emergency kit and crawled to the opening. The air smelled sweet and thick, like honey mixed with metal. He could breathe it, but it felt strange in his lungs. He stepped out onto purple soil. Tall structures rose around him, looking like towers made of paper and wax. They glowed with soft blue light from within. Peter realized these were not natural formations. They were buildings. A shadow fell over him. Peter turned and froze. Standing before him was the largest insect-like creature he had ever seen. It stood on 4 back legs with 2 front limbs that looked almost like arms. Its body was black with blue stripes that seemed to move and shift in the light. Its head had huge eyes that reflected Peter's own scared face back at him. More creatures appeared. They were smaller but similar, surrounding Peter in a circle. Their bodies clicked and hummed as they communicated with each other. Peter reached slowly for his translator device, but one of the creatures moved quickly, knocking it from his hand. "I mean no harm," Peter said, holding up empty hands. "I'm lost. My ship was attacked." The creatures made no response he could understand. Instead, they moved forward and grabbed him with surprising gentleness. Peter didn't fight. He knew he couldn't escape. The aliens lifted him and carried him toward one of the glowing towers. Inside, the walls pulsed with blue light. The air grew warmer and the sweet smell stronger. Peter was carried down long tunnels that twisted and turned. He tried to memorize the path, but soon became lost in the maze-like structure. Finally, they entered a massive chamber. In the center sat a creature that made the others look small. She was clearly female, with a body 3 times larger than her. Guards. Her coloring was different too, iridescent blues and purples that shifted like oil on water. Around her neck was a structure that looked like a crown of spines. The guards placed Peter on the ground before her and backed away. The giant queen leaned forward. Her face came close to Peter's. He could see his reflection in her huge compound eyes. Something brushed against Peter's mind. A feeling, not words. Curiosity. Question. He gasped as he realized what was happening. The queen was telepathic. She was trying to communicate. Peter had studied alien biology for years. He had never encountered telepathy before, but he had read theories about it. He closed his eyes and tried to focus his thoughts. He pictured his ship, the attack, his crash landing. He pushed these images forward in his mind, hoping she would see them. The queen moved back slightly. Her antennae twitched. Then another. Feeling touched Peter's mind. Understanding. Then another. Regret. Peter opened his eyes in surprise. The queen made a series of clicks and hums. The guards moved away, leaving Peter alone with her. She reached out one long limb and gently touched his face. More images filled Peter's mind. He saw ships, human ships landing on a small moon, people in space suits digging into the surface. Then he saw small blue eggs, thousands of them, being crushed under machines, the eggs of these aliens. The Queen showed him their young, dying because of human mining. Peter understood now. The attack wasn't random. It was revenge for what humans had done without knowing. They had destroyed a breeding ground. The aliens had thought humans were declaring war. We didn't know, Peter said aloud, even though he knew she couldn't understand his words. He focused his mind again, sending images of peace, of mistake, of misunderstanding. The Queen pulled back. She made a sound like singing metal. The guards returned, but they didn't grab Peter. Instead, they led him to a small chamber off the main room. There was a flat surface that could serve as a bed, and a pool of clear liquid that Peter guessed was water. He was a prisoner, but at least he was alive. Over the next few days, Peter learned more about the aliens. They brought him food, strange fruits, and something like bread. He was allowed to walk around his chamber, but not leave it. Twice a day, the Queen would summon him, and they would practice their mental communication. Peter began to call her Iris in his mind, because of her colorful eyes. She seemed amused by this. As they communicated more, Peter learned the aliens called themselves the Vespari. They were an old species with a complex society. Each hive was led by a queen who connected mentally with all her children. On the 5th day, Peter was able to form a clear message to Iris. My people will come looking for me. Iris's response was clear too. They will bring weapons. Peter couldn't deny it. After the attack on the Discovery, Earth would send warships. They wouldn't understand what had happened. They would see only a threat to eliminate. I need to contact them, Peter told Iris. I need to explain. Iris showed him images of the Vespari's communication technology. It was biological, based on the same telepathy she used with him. Human systems wouldn't receive it. Then I need to find another way, Peter said, or many people will die, your people and mine. Iris studied him for a long moment. Then she sent him a new image. It was Peter, but changed. His eyes reflected light like hers. His skin had a slight blue shine. In the image, he stood between humans and Vespari, speaking to both. Peter understood what she was suggesting. To truly communicate with both species, he would need to become part of both worlds. He would need to bond with the Vespari, with Iris herself. Is it possible? He asked. Iris's answer came with feelings of uncertainty and hope. It had never been done before. It would be painful. It might kill him. But if it worked, he would be the bridge between their kinds. Peter thought about his options. He could wait for the Earth fleet to arrive and hope they would listen before attacking. He could try to escape and maybe die in the attempt. Or he could take this strange, frightening chance. I'll do it, he told Iris. I'll bond with you. To stay alive, and to keep others alive too. Iris's approval filled his mind like warm light. Tomorrow, they would begin the process that would change Peter forever. Peter woke to the soft blue glow that filled his chamber. Today was the day. After a week among the Vespari, he would begin the bonding process with Iris, their queen. His stomach felt tight with fear, but he knew this was his only choice. 2 guard Vespari came for him. They no longer needed to grab him. Peter followed them willingly through the winding tunnels of the hive. As they walked, Peter noticed more details about the structure. The walls weren't built, they were grown. The entire hive was a living thing, created by the Vespari using their own biological skills. The main chamber looked different today. A pool of shimmering blue liquid sat in the center. Around it, 12 Vesparis stood in a circle. They were not guards, but a different type Peter hadn't seen before. Their bodies were thinner, and they had extra limbs that ended in delicate finger-like appendages. Scientists or doctors? Peter guessed. Iris waited beside the pool. When she saw Peter, a feeling of approval touched his mind. He had grown used to her mental communication, though it still surprised him how clear it could be. "What will happen?" Peter asked in his mind, sending the question with an image of himself, and the pool. Iris showed him a series of images too. Fast to fully understand, he caught glimpses of pain, change, and something new emerging. The message was clear enough. This would not be easy. One of the thin Vespari approached Peter. It held a cup made from a material like amber. Inside was a thick golden liquid. The creature offered it to Peter. "Drink," Iris commanded in his mind. Peter took the cup. The liquid smelled like flowers and metal. He hesitated, then drank it in one swallow. It tasted sweet at first, then bitter. Heat spread from his stomach to his entire body. His vision blurred. The world spun around him. Peter fell to his knees. The thin Vespari helped him up and led him to the pool. The blue liquid bubbled and gave off a soft mist. "Enter," Iris told him. Peter stepped into the pool. The liquid was warm and thick, more like gel than water. It rose to his waist and his chest as he walked deeper. The substance seemed to cling to his skin, seeping into his pores. Iris moved to the edge of the pool. She extended one long limb and placed it on Peter's forehead. Pain shot through his body. He would have screamed, but the blue gel filled his mouth when he opened it. Instead of choking him, it flowed down his throat. Peter felt it spreading inside him, changing him cell by cell. Images flooded his mind, not just from Iris, but from every Vespari in the hive. Thousands of lives and memories poured into him. He saw the history of their species, their art, their wars, their peace. He felt their joy at new births and their sorrow at deaths. The collective knowledge of the entire hive became part of him. Through it all, Iris guided him. Her presence, in his mind, was stronger than the others, a beacon in the storm of information. She showed him how to organize the thoughts, how to keep his own identity while accepting the hive mind. Hours passed. The pain grew worse, then began to fade. Peter's body felt strange, as if it wasn't entirely his anymore. When he opened his eyes, he saw the world differently. Colors he had never seen before appeared around the edges of things. He could sense the life force of every creature in the room. The thin Vespari helped him from the pool. His skin had a slight blue tint now, and when he caught his reflection in the surface of the liquid, he saw that his eyes had changed. They weren't compound like the Vesparis, but they reflected light in the same way, shimmering with colors. "It is done," Iris said in his mind, but her voice was clearer now, almost like human speech. "Not completely," Peter replied, finding he could project his thoughts with ease. "This is just the beginning." Iris moved closer. For the first time, Peter could read complex emotions from her: pride, hope, and something like affection. "You are right," she said. "The physical changes are only the start. Now you must learn to use your new abilities." Over the next few days, Peter discovered what the bonding had given him. He could communicate mentally with any Vespari in the hive. He could see energy fields around living things. His body was stronger, and small cuts healed in minutes instead of days. But the most important change was his connection to Iris. Through her, he learned the true reason for the bonding. The queen was dying. Without an heir, the hive would collapse. When she died, the Vespari, who had been meant to be her heirs, were killed during the human mining operation on the moon. "You sense the hive mind even as a human," Iris told him as they sat in her private chamber. "Your brain has a rare structure. When I found you, I knew you might be compatible." "Compatible for what?" Peter asked. though he was beginning to understand. 2. Help create a new queen, Iris said. A hybrid who can lead the hive after I am gone, and perhaps bridge our two species. Peter felt shock and a strange acceptance. Part of him, his old human self, was horrified at the idea. But his new self, the part connected to the hive, understood the necessity. How long do you have? He asked. 3 moon cycles, Iris replied. Perhaps 4. Peter nodded slowly. And the Earth fleet? When will they arrive? From what we can sense from your orbital stations, 2 moon cycles. Peter thought about what this meant. The Earth fleet would arrive before Iris died, before any hybrid heir could be born. They would see the Vespari as enemies and attack without. Understanding. I need to contact my people, Peter said. I need to warn them. Iris showed him an image of a structure on the far side of the hive. A communication center, using technology Peter had never seen before. We can try, she said. Your changed biology might allow you to use our systems to reach human frequencies. That night, Peter stood on a high platform above the hive. The 3 moons of the planet glowed in the sky. He could feel the minds of thousands of Vespari below him, going about their lives. They accepted him now as part of the hive, though. He looked different from them. He thought about what lay ahead. The Earth fleet was coming with weapons and anger. He had to find a way to stop a war before it started. And he had to help Iris create a new heir for the hive, a child that would be part human, part Vespari. His old life was gone. There was no going back to being just human. But perhaps, if he succeeded, he could create something new, a future, where humans and Vespari lived in peace. Peter looked at his hands in the moonlight. The blue tint of his skin reminded him of what he had given up and what he had gained. To stay alive, he had bonded with the alien queen. Now, to keep others. Alive, human, and Vespari alike, he would have to complete that bond in ways he had never imagined. Peter stood in the communication chamber of the Vespari hive. Around him, strange organic devices pulsed with blue light. These were not machines as humans understood them. They were living things, grown and shaped to serve a purpose. The Vespari. Technology was a blend of biology and engineering that amazed Peter. Will this work? He asked Iris, who stood beside him. Unknown, she replied in his mind. No human has tried before. Peter placed his hands on the main communication organ. It felt warm and slightly wet under his touch. The surface rippled in. Response to his presence. Peter closed his eyes and focused. He pictured Susan Miller, his friend and colleague from the ESS Discovery. If anyone would listen to him, it would be her. Using his new connection to the hive mind, Peter sent his thoughts into the communication organ. He felt it respond, translating his mental energy into signals that traveled beyond the planet. He pictured Susan's face, the sound of her voice, the way she always questioned everything. Susan, he projected. This is Peter Hayes. I'm alive on the Vespari planet. The aliens are not our enemies. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Please, respond. For several minutes, there was nothing. Peter tried again, focusing harder. His head began to hurt with the effort. Then, faintly, he felt something. A response. Peter? The voice was weak and full of static, but he recognized it immediately. Is that really you? How are you transmitting? Our sensors show strange energy patterns. Susan? Yes, it's me. I'm using Vespari technology. It's complicated. Listen, you need to tell the fleet not to attack when they arrive. The Vespari only fought back because our mining operation destroyed their breeding grounds. They thought we were starting a war. The connection wavered. Peter strained to maintain it, pushing more of his energy into the communication organ. His vision blurred with the effort. Peter, Your voice sounds strange. Are you okay? The fleet is preparing for a full assault. Commander Gregory believes you've been captured or killed. I'm alive, but I've changed. The Vespari Queen and I have formed a bond. It's allowed me to understand them. They're an advanced species, Susan. They want peace. There was a long pause before Susan responded. What do you mean, you formed a bond? What have they done to you, Peter? Peter hesitated. How could he explain what had happened? That he was no longer fully human? That his body and mind had been altered to connect with the Vespari hive? I volunteered for a procedure, he said finally. It changed me so I could communicate with them. I can explain everything when you arrive, but you must convince Commander Gregory to come in peace. Bring a small team to meet with me and the Queen. No weapons. Another pause. When Susan spoke again, her voice was cautious. Peter, how do I know this is really you? How do I know you haven't been forced to say these things? Peter thought quickly. He needed to prove he was himself, that his mind was still his own despite the changes. Remember the night before the mission launched? We stood on the observation deck. You showed me the star map your grandfather gave you. You said your greatest fear wasn't dying in space, but never getting the chance to explore it. I promised I'd name the first new star system we found after you. That's why I called this system the Miller Cluster in my last official report. The silence that followed felt endless. Peter's strength was fading. Maintaining the connection drained him more than he expected. I'll talk to Commander Gregory, Susan said at last. But I can't promise anything. The fleet will arrive in 6 days. Can you transmit coordinates for a safe landing zone? Yes, Peter said, relief flooding through him. He sent the image of a flat plain near the hive, then added, Come at dawn. Bring only 3 people. The Vespari will meet you with the same number. I'll do my best, Susan replied. Then her voice faded, and the connection broke. Peter stumbled back from the communication organ, exhausted. Iris caught him before he fell. She heard you, Iris said, not a question but a statement. Yes, but I don't know if she believes me. Or if she can convince the others. Iris helped Peter back to his chamber. The effort of the communication had weakened him. As he rested, he felt the Queen's concern through their bond. The final stage must happen soon, she told him. My life force fades. Peter knew what she meant. To create the hybrid heir that would save the hive, they needed to complete their bond. It would be more than mental. It would be genetic. Their DNA would combine in a way never done before. After we meet with the humans, Peter said, I need to be strong for that. Iris agreed, though he sensed her worry. She didn't have much time left. The next 6 days passed quickly. Peter grew stronger, learning more about his new abilities. He could now sense the emotions of every Vespari in the hive. He could see energy fields around living things. His body continued to change. His skin now had a definite blue tint, and tiny scales had formed along his arms. On the morning, the Earth fleet was due to arrive. Peter stood on the high platform again. Through the Vespari's sensitive detection systems, he felt the ships enter orbit. 5 large vessels, heavily armed. Enough firepower to destroy the entire hive. They're here, he told Iris, who stood beside him. A smaller ship separated from the fleet and began its descent toward the meeting place. Peter focused his enhanced vision and saw 3 figures inside. One was Susan. The others were men he didn't recognize, probably security officers. It's time, Peter said. He and Iris, along with 1 guard Vespari, made their way to the plane. They arrived before the human shuttle landed. Peter felt strange standing there, caught between 2 worlds. He was no longer just human, but not fully Vespari either. Would his former colleagues even recognize him? The shuttle touched down 50 meters away. A door opened, and 3 humans in protective suits stepped out. They carried no visible weapons, but Peter sensed their fear and suspicion. Susan led the group. When she saw Peter, she stopped suddenly. Even through her helmet, he could see the shock on her face. The 2 men beside her reached for weapons hidden in their suits. Peter? Susan's voice came through an external speaker. Is that really you? Peter stepped forward, away from Iris and the guard. It's me, Susan. I told you I've changed, but I'm still Peter Hayes. Susan took another step closer, studying him. Your eyes, your skin, ... The bond with the Vespari changed my appearance, but my mind is my own. I remember everything about my life, about Earth, about our mission. One of the men spoke into a communicator. Commander, the subject appears to be Hayes, but he's been physically altered. Awaiting orders. Peter heard the response through his enhanced hearing. If he makes any threatening move, terminate him and retreat to the shuttle. Susan moved closer despite the warning from her companions. Why did you do this, Peter? Why? Change yourself? To survive at first, Peter admitted, but then to understand. The Vespari aren't the monsters we thought they were. They have art, culture, science. Their technology is different from ours, but just as advanced. He gestured to Iris, who remained still, aware that any movement might frighten the humans. Queen. Iris leads the hive not through force, but through connection. Every Vespari is linked to her and to each other. They feel each other's pain and joy. They could never understand why we would attack their breeding grounds. In their culture, children are sacred. Susan looked from Peter to Iris and back again. Commander Gregory won't believe this. He's already decided the Vespari are a threat that must be eliminated. Then we have to show him he's wrong, Peter said, before it's too late for everyone. The tension in the air was thick as Peter stood between the 2 groups. Susan took off her helmet, despite warnings from her companions. She wanted to see Peter with her own eyes, without the barrier of her visor. You look different, she said, quietly, but your eyes, I can still see you in there. Peter nodded. I'm still me, Susan. My body has changed, but my memories, my values, they're the same. Commander Gregory's voice crackled through the communicator again. Miller, get Hayes to come aboard the shuttle. We need to examine him. Susan hesitated. Peter, would you be willing to come with us? Just to talk to the commander? Peter shook his head. I can't leave the planet now. The bond with Iris and the hive ... It's part of me. Being too far away would cause pain for both of us. This wasn't entirely true. He could likely survive a short trip to orbit, but he knew once he was on a human ship, they might never let him return. Then the commander needs to come down here, Susan said. Absolutely not, one of the security officers replied. It's too dangerous. Peter sensed something through his connection to the hive. A distant vibration, a sense of alarm spreading among the Vespari. He turned to Iris, who had also noticed it. Something's coming, she told him. Mentally, from the far side of our world. Peter focused his enhanced senses in that direction. Far beyond what human eyes could see, he detected movement in the sky. Ships, but not human ships. They had a different energy signature, one that felt wrong somehow. We have a problem, Peter said to Susan. There's another fleet approaching. Not human. Susan looked confused. What do you mean? Who else would be here? Before Peter could answer, one of the security officers received a message through his communicator. His face paled. Commander, long-range sensors have detected multiple vessels entering the system from the far side of the planet. Unknown configuration. Peter turned to Iris. Who are they? Images filled his mind. Another hive, a rival queen, centuries of conflict. The Vespari were not one united species. Like humans, they had different nations, different beliefs. This other hive had been at war with Iris's people for generations, fighting over territory and resources. They are the Mortari, Iris explained. They sensed my weakening and have come to destroy us while we are vulnerable. Peter quickly translated for Susan. There's another Vespari hive coming, enemies of this one. They've chosen this moment to attack because Iris is weakened. Susan looked skeptical. Convenient timing. It's the truth, Peter insisted. The Mortari have been waiting for a chance like this. With Iris dying and your fleet threatening us, they see an opportunity to eliminate their rivals. The security officers were receiving updates through their communicators. The human fleet had detected the approaching vessels and was moving to a defensive position. Commander Gregory is ordering us back to the ship immediately, one of them told Susan. He's preparing to engage the new arrivals. Peter realized this was about to become much more complicated. Susan, listen to me. If your fleet fires on the Mortari, they'll assume you're allied with Iris. They'll target your ships too. You need to stay out of this conflict. Susan looked torn. Peter, Commander Gregory won't just sit by and watch. Not with our people down. Here, then convince him to work with us, Peter said urgently. Iris's hive knows the Mortari tactics. They've fought them for generations. Together, we might stand a chance. Susan stared at Peter, then at Iris. The Queen remained still, but Peter could feel her anxiety. The Mortari were powerful, and her hive was in no condition for a major battle. I'll try, Susan finally said. She put her helmet back on and spoke to Commander Gregory, explaining the situation as Peter had described it. The response came back quickly and firmly. Negative. Miller, you and the team return to the shuttle now. That's an order. We're not getting involved in an alien civil war. Susan looked at Peter helplessly. He won't listen. Peter made a decision. Then I'll make him listen. He stepped toward Susan and placed his hand on her helmet. Using his connection to the hive's communication system, he sent his thoughts directly to the commander's ship. Commander Gregory, this is Lieutenant Peter Hayes. I know what you're seeing on your sensors. The approaching fleet is hostile to both of us. If you engage them separately, we'll all die. But together, we have a chance. There was a long silence. Then, Hayes, if that's really you, you're committing treason by siding with these aliens. I'm trying to save lives, human and Vespari, Peter replied. The Mortari will destroy your ships once they've finished with the hive. They see all outsiders as threats. As if to prove his point, the first Mortari ships appeared in the sky above them. They were similar to Vespari vessels, but darker, with red energy signatures instead of blue. They immediately began firing on the hive's outer structures. The human fleet would be their next target. You have 5 minutes to get your people to safety, Commander Gregory said after another pause. Then we're leaving this system. Peter felt desperation rise within him. 5 minutes wasn't enough time to evacuate even a small portion of the hive. Thousands would die. Susan must have seen the anguish on his face. She turned away from her companions and spoke quietly to Peter. What do you need us to do? We need to show Gregory that helping the Vespari is in humanity's best interest, Peter said. The Mortari won't stop with this hive. They'll see humans as a threat to eliminate. Susan thought for a moment, then nodded. She spoke into her communicator. Again, but this time to a different channel. Dr. Ellis, are you monitoring the energy signatures from these new vessels? Yes, came the reply. Fascinating readings. Similar to the ones we detected when our ship was attacked, but more powerful. Send that data to Commander Gregory, Susan ordered. Show him what those weapons could do to our ships. While Susan worked to convince the commander, Peter linked his mind more deeply with Iris. Together, they reached out to the hive's defense systems. Living weapons grew from the structures, extending toward the sky. Blue energy beams shot upward, targeting the Mortari ships. One of the enemy vessels was hit and spiraled downward, crashing in the distance. But there were many more, and they were returning fire with devastating effect. Parts of the hive began to collapse. Peter felt the pain of every Vespari who was injured or killed. Through his bond with the hive, their suffering became his own. He fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the sensation. Susan rushed to his side. "Peter, what's happening to you?" "The hive," he gasped. "I feel them dying." Just then, Susan's communicator crackled with Commander Gregory's voice. "Miller, the science team has analyzed those weapons. If those hostiles turn them on us, ... He paused. "Tell Hayes we'll provide cover fire from orbit, but only for 30 minutes. Then we're gone, with or without you." Susan smiled at Peter. "You hear that? We have help." Peter nodded weakly and struggled to his feet. "It's a start. But we need more than just firepower. We need a plan to defeat the Mortari permanently, or they'll just keep coming back." He looked at Iris, who was directing her forces through the hive mind. "And for that," he said, "we need to complete our bond. Now, before it's too late." The ground shook as another Mortari attack hit the hive. Peter steadied himself against a wall as he and Iris hurried through the tunnels. Susan followed close behind, having convinced her security team to return to the shuttle and help coordinate. "The human fleet's defense. Where are we going?" Susan asked, struggling to keep up. "To the heart of the hive," Peter explained. "The sacred chamber where queens are born." They reached a section of the hive Peter had never seen before. The walls here pulsed with a deeper blue light. The air felt thick with energy. 2 guard Vespari stood at an entrance, moving aside as Iris approached. Inside, a pool of golden liquid glowed in the center of a round chamber. It was different from the blue pool Peter had entered for his first bonding. This liquid seemed to be alive, moving on its own in slow, gentle waves. "This is the royal jelly," Peter told Susan. "It contains the genetic material of all previous queens. It's how the Vespari preserve their history and create new rulers." Susan looked amazed but confused. "Why am I here? This seems ... private." "Because I need a witness from my old life," Peter said. "Someone who can tell humanity what happened here, what we created." Iris moved to the edge of the pool. Through their bond, she explained what needed to happen. The final bonding would combine their DNA completely. From that union, a new heir would be created, part human, part Vespari. A bridge between worlds. Peter turned to Susan. "The Mortari want to destroy this hive because they fear what Iris and I might create. A hybrid queen would change everything for the Vespari. It would open the possibility of peace, not just between our species, but among the Vespari themselves." Susan's eyes widened as she understood. "You're going to father a child with her? Is that even possible?" "The first bonding changed my biology enough to make it possible," Peter said. "This final step will complete the process." Another explosion rocked the chamber. Dust fell from the ceiling. They didn't have much time. "Commander Gregory says the Mortari have broken through the outer defenses," Susan reported, checking her. "Communicator, our ships can't hold them off much longer." Peter nodded and began removing his shirt. His chest now had the same blue tint as his arms, with small scales forming patterns across his skin. He looked at Susan one last time. "Whatever happens, tell them I chose this. Tell them it was worth it." Before Susan could respond, Peter stepped into the golden pool. The liquid was warm and seemed to welcome him, wrapping around his body like a living blanket. Iris joined him, her large form gliding gracefully into the pool. Susan watched in amazement as the golden liquid began to glow brighter. It swirled around Peter and Iris, drawing them together. Their forms became hard to distinguish as the light intensified. Peter felt his mind expanding even further. He could now sense not just the hive, but the entire planet. Every living creature became part of his awareness. And at the center of it all was Iris, her consciousness merging with his own. Their thoughts, memories, and genetic material combined in ways that defied human understanding. Peter felt his body changing at the cellular level. The process wasn't painful this time, but powerful beyond words. In that moment of complete union, something new was created. Peter sensed it immediately, a small spark of life, containing elements of both himself and Iris, their child, the future queen. The light in the pool suddenly pulsed outward in a wave of energy that spread through the entire hive. Susan shielded her eyes as the chamber filled with blinding golden light. When the light faded, Peter stood alone in the pool. His appearance had changed even more. His skin was now covered in fine, iridescent scales. His eyes glowed with inner light. But the biggest change was within. He could feel the new life growing, protected inside a special chamber that had formed within his abdomen. "Iris?" Susan asked, looking around the chamber. "She is here," Peter said, touching his chest. "Part of me now, and part of our child." Susan stepped forward hesitantly. "Are you still, Peter?" He smiled, and despite his altered appearance, the expression was entirely human. "Yes, I'm still Peter, just more than I was before." Another explosion, closer this time. The chamber trembled. "We need to stop the Mortari," Peter said. "Now." He stepped out of the pool and placed his hands on the chamber walls. Through his enhanced connection to the hive, he sent out a command. The entire structure responded, shifting and changing. "What are you doing?" Susan asked. "Activating the hive's ultimate defense," Peter explained. "Something only a queen can do. The living structure itself will fight back." Outside, the hive began to transform. Sections that had seemed like simple walls extended outward, forming massive tendrils that reached toward the attacking ships. Blue energy coursed through these extensions, shooting into the sky. In orbit, Commander Gregory watched in astonishment as the planet itself seemed to come alive. The hive structure was fighting back with unexpected power, taking down Mortari, ships one after another. "What the hell is happening down there?" he demanded. Susan's voice came through the communicator. "Sir, Peter and the Queen have merged somehow. He's controlling the hive's defenses. The Mortari are retreating." On the surface, Peter stood on the highest point of the hive, directing its energy. The power flowing through him was incredible. He could sense the fear in the Mortari ships as they realized something had changed. This was not the weakened hive they had expected to find. One by one, the enemy vessels pulled back, returning to space. The few human ships that had stayed to help held their positions, weapons ready but no longer firing. Susan joined Peter on the platform. "It's over? Just like that?" Peter shook his head. "Not over. Just beginning." He placed a hand on his abdomen, where the new life grew. "In 3 months, the child will be ready to be born. She will be the first of her kind, human and Vespari. Together, what will you name her?" Susan asked. Peter smiled. "Hope, because that's what she represents for both our species." In the following days, Peter met with Commander Gregory and explained everything. The commander was skeptical at first, but the evidence was hard to deny. Peter's transformation, the defeat of the Mortari, and the possibility of gaining access to Vespari biotechnology convinced him to establish a permanent human presence on the planet. Susan stayed as the chief human representative. She helped Peter prepare for the birth of hope and served as a bridge between the two species. Other scientists from the fleet joined her, eager to learn about Vespari culture and technology. 3 months later, Hope was born. She had her mother's iridescent coloring and her father's human features in a perfect blend. From birth, she could communicate telepathically with both the hive and with humans. As she grew, Hope became what Peter had dreamed she would be, a true bridge between worlds. Under her influence, other hives began to seek peace with Iris's people. Humans established colonies on the planet, learning to live alongside the Vespari instead of in conflict with them. Peter never returned to Earth. His body was too changed, too dependent on the hive connection. But he didn't regret his choice. To stay alive, he had bonded with the alien queen. In doing so, he had created a future neither species could have imagined alone. Standing on the high platform 5 years later, with Hope beside him, Peter watched humans and Vespari working together to build a new city. The two species had much to learn from each other, and many challenges still lay ahead. But for the first time, they faced the future not as enemies, but as allies. Perhaps one day, even as family.